that, and so we need to be sure you're really enjoying all the provisions that are made available for you. So once again, the purpose of our gathering this week is to focus on the second edition of the Public Finance Management Academy for Africa, Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition States. And we all know the theme: strengthening capacity for loan negotiation and debt restructuring in Africa's transition states. It is not in my place to say the welcoming and the opening remarks. We have someone who's been designated to do that. So please, you permit me now to invite the Vice President and Chief Economist of the African Development Bank. Is unavoidably present, but he designated the country manager for Ghana to represent him in making the welcoming remarks. But we have someone who will be representing him today, and that's the person of Olam Bekale. Olam Bekale is the principal country program manager or officer for Ghana, and he is from the African Development Bank. So shall we please welcome Mr. Bekale Olam as he comes up here to give us the welcoming remarks.
Good morning. As said, I will be presenting the speech of Professor Kevin Urama, Chief Economist and Vice President, Economic Governance and Knowledge Management Complex for the African Development Bank. And I will do that on behalf of the Miss Jerusalem, who is the country manager of AFDB country office here in Ghana. Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister Thomas Nyako Ampem, Deputy Minister of Finance, Ghana, officials of the Ministry of Finance, representatives of regional member countries, members of parliament and diplomatic corps, faculty members of the Public Finance Management Academy for Africa, PFMA, Policy Lab Unit, and African Development Bank colleagues, Ghana Country Office colleagues, distinguished participants, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all to this second edition of the PFMA Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition States under the theme Strengthening Capacity for Loan Negotiation and Debt Restructuring in Africa's Transition State. The first edition of this initiative was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in June 2024, with a focus on emerging public debt management capacity development challenges in Africa's transition state. This is part of the implementation of the project, strengthening the capacity of transition state for effective management and mitigation of debt distress risk being implemented for 22 transition states in Africa under the bank's transition support facility. The African Development Institute designed this project to support capacity development on debt management, transparency, and sustainability in our transition state, especially as many of them are either in debt distress at a high risk of debt distress or at moderate risk of debt distress. Before I continue, please permit me to thank our host, the Minister of Finance, Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Cassiel Forson, who is ably represented by Honorable Thomas Nyako Ampem, Deputy Minister of Finance, Ghana, for providing a conducive environment for us to host this event here in this beautiful and historic city of Accra, and for honoring us with his presence today. Honorable Minister, we are delighted to have you here, sir. Your Excellency, the African Development Institute of the African Development Bank undertakes various capacity development programs and activities for the regional member countries of the bank towards the implementation of the bank group's capacity development strategy 2021 to 2025, the multidimensional action plan for the management of mitigation and debt distress risks in Africa, the Debt Action Plan 2021 to 2023, the Strategy for Economic Governance in Africa, SEGA, 2021 to 2025, and the Strategy for Addressing Fragility and Building Resilience in Africa, 2022 to 2026. These activities include executive training on public finance debt management under the Public Finance Management Academy for Africa, PFMA, and macroeconomic policy management under the Macroeconomic Policy Management Academy for Africa, MEMA. The Institute has also established specialized vehicles to drive not only technical level knowledge and capacity, but also policy level capacity for public finance and debt management. These include the Africa Debt Managers Initiative Network, a policy dialogue and learning platform for debt managers on the continent, as well as the Debt Management Forum for Africa, DIMFA, a policy dialogue and learning platform for ministers of finance and central bank governors. These initiatives include this Spotlight series that focused especially on transition state are running currently to address the urgent capacity development needs in public financial management and debt management in Africa. The PFMA has been conducting an 18-month structured PFM executive training covering the public financial management cycle and ecosystem since June 2022 across 6 modules, including domestic revenue mobilization, macro-fiscal modeling and forecasting, public budget and expenditure management, debt reporting, management and sustainability, and public-private partnerships for effective public financial management and transparency, accountability, and curbing corruption and illicit financial flows. In the first 18 months of establishing the PFMA, it provided training to 145 officials from 45 regional member countries of the bank, out of which 51 persons from 26 countries graduated and were certified as public finance management experts in December 2023 in a grand ceremony in Abuja, Nigeria. We have received very encouraging commendation and feedback from our trainees and graduates regarding how practical, relevant, and useful the trainings have been for the day-to-day work of addressing the PFM and debt challenges facing the respective countries. and there has been increasing demand for the training, in response to which we have over 500 officials nominated by 49 countries who are participating in the second cohort of the executive training, which commenced in June 2024. One of the key tenets of the capacity development activities of the bank is partnership. All these trainings were undertaken in collaboration with our institutional partners, including the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the African Finance Corporation, the African Tax Administration Forum, the Collaborative African Budget Reform Initiative, the Open Governance Partnership, Open Ownership, PFMA Secretariat, African Economic Research Consortium, OECD Global Forum, West Africa Institute for Financial and Economic Management, Macroeconomic and Financial Management Institute for Eastern and Southern Africa, Commonwealth Secretariat, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, the International Budget Partnership, the Africa Legal Support Facility, and other regional and international institutions. In addition to the 18-month structured PFM executive training series, the PFM provides flexible, on-demand technical assistance, policy dialogue, and peer learning to regional member countries in public, financial, and debt management, as well as macroeconomic policy management. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are all aware of the magnitude and challenge of debt burden African countries are carrying, especially the low-income countries that constitute the bank's ADF-eligible countries, including Ghana, of course, to which most, if not all, the transition state belong. Gross government debt as a percent of GDP in ADF-eligible countries more than doubled in the last 10 years, from 37.8% in 2011 to a peak of 76.4% in 2020. The debt ratio has declined, reaching 62.3% in 2022, as growth in most economies has broadly recovered from the effects of COVID-19. Despite this decline, ADF countries have experienced heightened debt vulnerabilities exacerbated by an increased share of commercial debt in total public debt. Debt vulnerabilities have also been stoked by recent shocks such as COVID-19, rising episodes of climate events, the tightening of global financial conditions, and geopolitical conflicts across the globe. The average debt to GDP ratio of ADF countries is projected to stabilize at 63% in 2023-2024, but the short-term outlook is subject to a high degree of uncertainty underpinned by several vulnerabilities, including high debt service costs, weaker domestic currencies, and persistent refinancing risk. In response to these ominous challenges, the bank designed, among other initiatives, the project on strengthening the capacity of transition state for effective management and mitigation of debt distress risks to support capacity development in 22 transition states that are beneficiaries of the project, including Burundi, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Liberia, Madagascar, Mali, Mozambique, Niger, Sao Tome and Principe, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Togo, and Zimbabwe. In implementing this project, the African Development Institute, which is the implementing entity, has developed a number of capacity development initiatives, amongst which is the PFMA Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition State, which a dedicated debt management capacity development for this special category of countries in Africa. This maiden edition of the Spotlight on Transition State on addressing emerging public debt management capacity challenges in Africa's transition state and focused on providing best practice solutions to emerging capacity development challenges in public financial and debt management in the transition state by experts in this field. The objective of this second edition of Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition is to dive deeper into addressing the critical knowledge and capacity gap in loan negotiation and debt restructuring that most of our transition states are confronted with in the management of their sovereign debts for their economic stability and development. The topics that will be covered in this edition of the Spotlight series on strengthening capacity for loan negotiation and debt restructuring in Africa's transition state have been carefully curated to address the issues of debt restructuring as well as loan negotiation to make debt work for Africa. This topic includes sovereign debt restructuring experience in Africa under the G20 Common Framework, loan negotiation experience in Africa, what we need to know, the role of strong institutional, legal and regulatory framework and capacity for debt management, sovereign loan debt pricing instrument, assessing debt sustainability prior to new debt incurrence, why and how, loan negotiation documentation, building resilience in loan instruments, cash management and managing debt service and areas, sovereign debt restructuring, cause, processes, techniques, players, etc. Debt restructuring, case studies, accessing restructuring scenarios, restructuring and refinancing external debt, and restructuring domestic commercial debt, and recovering from debt distress and building back fiscal sustainability and resilience, to mention a few. I will also like to express my special appreciation to the African Legal Support Facility and their partner, Global Sovereign Advisory, for the sacrifice they have made to ensure that this specialized team of debt management was adequately covered and resourced. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that the next 5 days will be most rewarding for the participants and their countries as they engage in this dialogue and learning session. We expect that at the end of these 5 days, the participants will have, amongst other things, appreciation of tailored best practice solutions to loan negotiation and debt restructuring, establish a network or community of practice on debt management in the transition state, receive resources for debt management in their countries, and be abreast of useful policy recommendations for the policymakers. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by reiterating reiterating the African Development Bank continue commitment to capacity development on the continent, especially in the transition state. This Spotlight series is just one of the many initiatives we are putting in place to support prudent public financial and debt management, inclusive growth, and sustainable development in African transition countries. I thank you all for attending this dialogue and learning event. I also thank your government for releasing you to participate in this program. I believe that these 5 days of training will further strengthen your knowledge and skills in the day-to-day tools you require to deal with the challenges you face in debt management, transparency, and sustainability in your respective countries, especially in the area of loan negotiation and debt restructuring. I welcome you once again to this PFMA Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition State and wish you happy learning and fruitful discussion. Akwaba, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Bekale, for ably representing the Chief Economist and Vice President of the bank, and by giving us that very rousing, welcoming remarks. We have noted all those points you made with regard to what has been achieved through the Public Finance Management Academy for Africa. So now that we have been properly welcomed, I can now introduce myself. My name is Eric Ogunleye. I'm the director of the African Development Institute of the African Development Bank. It is indeed my pleasure to moderate this session, which is the opening session of our 5-day activity. Very intensive it's going to be, and I'm sure we're all ready for it. Okay, so moving on, this program, the funding of this initiative is made possible through funding that we got from a department that is called the Transition States Coordination Office in the African Development Bank. And so it's my pleasure to welcome the director of that department, Dr. Yero Balde, who will be represented by my very good friend, Mr. Riyad Ben Masood, to give some remarks. He will be joining us virtually, so please pay attention to the screen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants and honorable guests. It's really a privilege and honor to join you virtually today to deliver these opening remarks on behalf of Director Yero Balde, the Director of the Transition States Coordination Office and the Administrator of the Transition Support Facility of the African Development Bank. Though we are not with you physically in Accra, we are really delighted to connect with you as we gather for this important second edition of the PFMA Spotlight on Public Debt Management in Transition States. Today's event marks a significant step toward our collective journey to build resilient public financial management system in Africa's transition states. As many of you know, the African Development Bank, through the targeted support window of its Transition States Coordination Office and its Transition Support Facility, has been actively implementing the project on strengthening the capacity of transition states for effective management and mitigation of debt distress risks. This Spotlight event is really an integral and crucial activity within the project results framework, aimed at equipping our countries with the skills and knowledge they need to come forward to confront the complex challenges of debt system vulnerability. The theme of this second edition, strengthening capacity for loan negotiation and debt restructuring in Africa transition states, is as timely as it is crucial. Across our continent, and especially in fragile context, many transition states face heightened debt risk exacerbated by limited capacity to negotiate loan on favorable terms and to manage the restructuring process effectively when debt distress arises. So these challenges can threaten fiscal stability, undermine social progress, and put up the path to development. Through this week's policy dialogue, technical sessions, and peer learning, we really seek to build the institutional capacity necessary for proactive debt management, improved loan negotiation, and sound debt restructuring practices. By strengthening these capacity, we can transform debt from a driver of vulnerability into a catalyst for sustainable growth and resilience. The Transition States Coordination Office is really proud to support this initiative, implemented, of course, in collaboration with the African Development Institute, the African Legal Support Facility, and our development partners. Our active participation and your active participation in this week will not only enhance our individual skills, but will also contribute to the collective efforts of our transition states to achieve macroeconomic stability and foster inclusive development. On behalf of the director, Yero Balde, I really extend our sincere appreciation to the government of Ghana for hosting this important gathering and all our colleagues who have worked diligently to bring this activity to action. In closing, I encourage you all to engage fully over the coming days. Share your experience, explore practical solutions, and take back actionable insights that will strengthen your country's capacities to navigate debt challenges and build fiscal resilience. I wish you all a productive and impactful week of dialogue and learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Riyadh, for ably representing Mr. Yero. We really appreciate those very encouraging words, and we indeed look forward to a very interactive and engaging session here in Accra. Just by way of house cleaning, note that we have simultaneous interpretation from English to French and French to English. So if you need, it's not working? Is it working? Gaurav? It's okay. All right. So if you need a headset, feel free, because some participants will be speaking in French at some point. And for those who also need direct interpretation to French for the English that's been spoken since we started, so please feel free. And in addition to that, we have over 200 people who are connected online, either through Zoom or other bank platform. You also have the icon, the globe icon, which you can also use to select the language of your choice. So that will help you to benefit very fully from the program today. We have now come to the high point of this opening session. It's time now, the time has arrived to listen very attentively to our host, the Honorable Minister of Finance of Ghana, Dr. Kassel Ato Forson, who is ably represented by Honorable Thomas Ampem Nyankun, who is the Deputy Minister of Finance for Ghana. So please, let's give him a warm as he comes here to declare this event open.
Thank you, MC. I have a tall list of people to acknowledge, but because I'm not sure who is here and who is not, permit me to refer to you all as distinguished ladies and gentlemen. But I would love to recognize one person, Honorable Setekwe, who is a former Minister of Finance for this great nation. And I call him my boss's boss, because when he was Finance Minister, the current Finance Minister was his deputy. And my boss continuously talks about how he learned from him. And so today, I'm indirectly learning from you, Mr. Tekwe. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the vibrant city of Accra for the second Public Finance Management Academy for Africa under the theme Strengthening Capacity for Loan Negotiation and Debt Restructuring in Africa's Transition States. It is both an honor and a privilege to represent the Minister for Finance of the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Dr. Cecile Atoba Forson, at this second edition of the PFMA, focusing on public debt management in transition states. May I, at this point, express Ghana's sincere appreciation to the African Development Institute and partners for selecting Ghana as a host for this valuable training program for transition states. Allow me to begin with a timeless African proverb that the wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. You know how big the baobab tree is, and no matter how long your arms are, one person can never embrace it. You have to join hands with many people to be able to cover the entire perimeter of the baobab tree. This proverb captures the essence of why we are gathered here today. It reminds us that the complex challenges we face, such as debt sustainability, fiscal distress, fiscal stress, and economic recovery, require shared wisdom, deep collaboration, and strong partnerships. It is complex for one country to confront alone, so we need each other. Ghana's economy faced significant challenges in recent years, with a continued fiscal deficit leading to an upward trend in the debt trajectory. The budget deficit in 2020 reached 16% of GDP as per revised figures from the IMF, while public debt increased from 65.7% in 2019 to 80.4% in 2020. By 2022, public debt was about 88% of GDP, with debt servicing consuming over 70% of domestic revenues. Significant central bank financing of the government's budget led to inflation reaching hyper levels of 54.1% in December 2022. The worsened macroeconomic situation led to credit rating downgrades from all three major credit rating agencies, all putting Ghana's ratings in junk status. The government's efforts to control the macroeconomic situation through revenue-led fiscal consolidation without expenditure rationalization failed to stem the downward tide. The international capital markets then shut Ghana out. The spread on Ghana's Eurobonds spiraled out of control, reaching an all-time high of 3,400 on October 31st, 2022. Faced with these macroeconomic challenges, Ghana declared a default on its external debt in December 2022. The country then sought an IMF program, necessitating the most comprehensive debt restructuring ever on the continent, after authorities at the time finally accepted that the revenue-led fiscal adjustment would not be sufficient to restore debt sustainability. We launched a domestic debt exchange program in 2023 and entered into complex negotiations with bilateral and commercial creditors under the G20 Common Framework. Ghana's debt restructuring experience is neither unique nor isolated, but it is enlightening. Ghana's experience is echoed across the continent. Today, 22 African countries are in or at high risk of debt distress, many facing the same convergence of fiscal pressures and institutional gaps. In 2024, Africa's total public debt reached an estimated $1.86 trillion, with debt to GDP ratios increasing from 44.4% in 2015 to 66.7% today. This year alone, debt servicing is projected to exceed $89 billion, squeezing out essential investments. Behind these statistics are delayed infrastructure projects, reduced social spending, weakened public trust, and constrained national development efforts. They reflect real and rising pressures that limit our ability to deliver on the promise of Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Recognizing this, the African Union Commission just 2 months ago convened a pivotal conference in Lomé under the theme Africa's Public Debt Management Agenda, Restoring and Safeguarding Debt Sustainability. It called for African-led solutions to rising debt vulnerabilities through stronger institutions, greater transparency, and enhanced domestic resource mobilization. But let us be honest, our institutional and technical capacity still lags behind the scale of the challenges we face. Many countries still secure loan agreements without a full understanding of the long-term legal, financial, and developmental implications. Often, weak institutional frameworks and limited access to skilled negotiators mean we get less than optimal outcomes, prolonging fiscal stress and reducing room to invest in people. Since taking office, the new administration here in Ghana has taken key, bold corrective measures to reset the economy following the debt restructuring period. The government realigned the 2025 budget to achieve a primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP and introduced corrective measures to address excessive expenditure witnessed in recent past. Accordingly, amendments have been made to the PFM and public procurement laws to establish fiscal and debt rules, strengthen control over public spending through commitment authorizations, and enhance fiscal responsibility frameworks. These are more ambitious than the targets in the current IMF program. Furthermore, the Ghana Electronic Procurement System has been fully integrated with the Ghana Integrated Financial Management Information System, aiming to improve efficiency and transparency in public procurement processes. The government also tightened monetary policy to combat inflationary pressures and introduced major structural reforms across key businesses, sectors, and processes, promoting economic growth and stability. We also front-loaded fiscal consolidation backed by expenditure rationalization and cuts to ensure that Ghana's fiscal dominance becomes a thing of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, these measures demonstrate the government's commitment to pursuing an ambitious and lasting fiscal adjustment with the goal of restoring strong debt sustainability. The results of these efforts are already showing. Against the backdrop of economic policies implemented by the government, the outcome has far exceeded expectations in recent months. The country's provisional real GDP growth rate for the first quarter of 2025 stood at 5.3%, up from 4.9% in the same period in 2024, and surpassing the annual target of 4.0%, mainly driven by policies in real sector activities, external sector development, monetary stance, and fiscal operations. Similarly, the Bank of Ghana's Composite Index of Economic Activities grew from 1.5% in April 2024 to 2.3% in March this year. Inflation has reduced significantly from 23.4% in December 2024 to 18.4% as of May 2025. We're expecting a new inflation figures this week, and it is our expectation that it will go down again. This is the lowest inflation since early 2022, and is targeted to go even further in June 2025 and the rest of the year. Consumer Confidence Index rose to 103.6 in April 2025 from 87.7 in April 2024, while Business Confidence Index increased to 102.2 from 92.6, reflecting renewed optimism about the economy's direction. It is worth noting that this is the highest consumer and business confidence index in 7 years. Ghana's debt restructuring aims to restore a moderate risk of debt distress by reducing the net present value of public debt to GDP to 55% by 2028. As a result of Ghana's cedi's sustainable appreciation, the debt to GDP ratio is forecasted to meet the 55% target ahead of time in this year, 2025, a notable achievement that positions Ghana as one of the few countries to achieve such progress in the third year of comprehensive restructuring. Ladies and gentlemen, these developments have been recognized by the credit rating agencies. Fitch Credit Rating Agency upgraded Ghana from restricted default to B- with a stable outlook. This, on record, is one of the fastest credit rating upgrades post-debt restructuring in recent global developments. What this means is that one cardinal objective of the IMF program, which was the restoration of international market access, has been achieved far ahead of time. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, our experience is that debt restructuring is a painful exercise, but Ghana remains unrelenting in our pursuit and is committed to completing it for the benefit of all Ghanaians and to provide lessons for other African countries. Africa's debt profile is evolving, with reduced concessional financing and increased commercial financing resulting in high borrowing costs. Credit rating agencies should also consider the peculiar characteristics of African economies and incorporate them in their sovereign ratings. By applying the same set of metrics to both developed and developing economies, rating agencies may be further reinforcing structural biases in the world economic order. The G20 Common Framework has seen only 4 countries in Africa applying. That is Ghana, Chad, Ethiopia, and Zambia are the only ones to have applied for it. Some say due to its complexity. The complexity even deepens when we consider opposing objectives arising from different creditor priorities, with official creditors seeking fair burden sharing and private creditors focusing on maximizing recovery value. This therefore puts into context the importance of this week's training session. Peer learning opportunities such as this can improve debt restructuring architecture and facilitate easier processes for transition states. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this week gives us the opportunity to reflect, share, and collaborate. Let us engage openly and honestly about what has worked, what has not, and what we must do differently. Let us not just confront the uncomfortable truths, but also act on the opportunity to build more resilient, transparent, and accountable debt systems. Let us together stand beneath the baobab tree, drawing strength not from any one individual, but from the collective knowledge, experience, and determination of all gathered here. Above all, let us reaffirm our commitment to African-led solutions built on transparency, discipline, and accountability. I reaffirm Ghana's commitment to sound fiscal governance, institutional resilience, and responsible debt management. The road ahead may be challenging, but it is not beyond our reach. Together, we can build the institutional capacity, policy frameworks, and shared resolve needed to navigate the complexities of loan negotiations and debt restructuring in our transitioning economies. With the right tools, partnerships, and political will, we can turn today's debt pressures into tomorrow's development opportunities and gains. Finally, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, to once again express our gratitude to the African Development Bank for hosting this second episode of training here in Accra. I conclude by wishing all a productive discussion and fruitful outcomes, and to impress upon you to take time off your busy agenda and personally experience Ghanaian hospitality. You must all endeavor to visit Akosombo and its environs before you leave here. Thank you all. On this note, I declare this 5-day training session duly open. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency. We really appreciate your time. Very kind words. I like the illustration about the baobab tree. You started with it and you ended with it. It takes all of us to take our hands around it. And I quite agree with us. And that's why we're here today. All of us as Africans, we are here to continue to ensure that we circle that baobab tree. And with all of us, with all hands on deck, we can make it happen. We're also very impressed about the role model that Ghana has been playing. I must confess to you, Honorable Minister, that the reason we chose Ghana for this training is because of the experience that Ghana offers. And I believe all of us will take advantage of that to ensure that we learn from those who are doing it right. When we're talking about lessons learned from others, it mustn't necessarily be outside the continent. We have a lot of good lessons within Africa that we can learn from. And that is the essence of coming together this way. So thank you also for contextualizing this training. You have really put it in good perspective. We have seen the benefits that come from loans. Like we keep saying, loan is not bad in itself. Debts are not bad in themselves. But what is bad are the terms of the contract of the loans are bad. If the use to which the resources are put are not productive, that is when loan becomes bad. So let's have that in mind. And at the African Development Bank, our focus is make debt work for Africa. And we can make that happen. And that is the reason we're here this week. So once again, I also like your point about African solutions. And that is the reason we're here again. African countries have solutions for most of the problems we're facing if we look inward enough. And that is the reason we need to look ourselves in the eyes. And when I was discussing with Honorable Tekwela in the morning, he said we should not feel uncomfortable to tell ourselves the truth. Let's be bold about it. What we're not doing wrong, let's point it out. And where lessons are being learned, where good practices are being seen, let's also point them out. So all of us participants, let's have all of these words of wisdom from the Honorable Minister at the back of our minds as we set out on this 5-day journey of training. So once again, let's give the Honorable Minister a very round of applause. So with that, we come to the end of the official opening session. The Minister has declared it duly open, so it is now open. But Honorable Minister, we know you are very busy and you may want to leave us, but we want to just crave your indulgence to please come back to the podium. We need to have a group, a family photo, especially with the faculty members. So faculty members, please If you're available, join us here so we can have a quick family photo with the Honorable Minister before we go. But for all of us after that, all of us, all the participants will also come here to have a group photo. In that case, we may not, the minister may leave us, but we'll continue the business. So thank you. So our photographers, please. So all participants, please, we need to take a family photo now. All of us, please. All of us. Thank you. So let's settle down so we can continue the program. Please find your seats and let's get ready for the next session. The theme of this event will be addressing emerging public debt management capacity challenges in transition countries.
First 18 months of establishing the PFMA, it provided training to 145 officials from 45 African countries, out of which 51 persons from 26 countries graduated and were certified as public financial management experts in 2023.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that although there have been positive strides in debt management on the continent, debt challenge and vulnerability still persists, especially among our countries in transition, face a multiple of political, economic, security, and environmental challenges.
The theme of this event will be addressing emerging public debt management capacity challenges in transition countries.
First 18 months of establishing the PFMA, it provided training to 145 officials from 45 African countries, out of which 51 persons from 26 countries graduated and were certified as public financial management experts in 2023.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that although there have been positive strides in debt management on the continent, debt challenge and vulnerability still persists, especially among our countries in transition, face a multiple of political, economic, security, and environmental challenges.
Thank you very much. So we're going to the next item on the agenda. We are inviting the task team lead for this project, Mr. Chidebere Ibe, who will be making a presentation on strengthening the capacity of transition states for effective management and mitigation of debt distress risks. Mr. Chidebere, please, you're welcome and you have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this event. I'm happy that all of us managed to come in spite of the difficulties and challenges. Thank you for coming. So my presentation is just to let us have an appreciation of this project, the project under which we are having this event, and the support that we have for different countries. Like I've been introduced, my name is Chidebere Ibe. I work for the African Development Institute. Okay, so this project, which is titled Capacity Development for Effective Management and Mitigation of Debt Distress Risks in Africa, was approved by the board of the bank on April 13, 2023. It is a project funded under the Transition Support Facility Pillar 3 window. We listened to the director of the Transition States Department, earlier on, who joined us virtually. The budget of this project is about 2 million UA, or about 2.5 million US dollars. It's a small project, but with a lot of impact. It covers about 22 countries in Africa. At the time the project was approved in 2023, we had 22 transition states, but now we have about 24. So the rest two are not covered in this project. And it's supposed to be implemented over 3 years, from April 2023 to March 2026. One feature of this project is that it is bank implemented. What that means is that we don't have a firm or a contractor who is implementing the project. So the African Development Institute is the one implementing the project internally in the bank. And the advantage of this is that it is saving the bank a lot of money, saving the project a lot of money. So the money would have paid to private firms to implement the project. We are doing it by ourselves, and that's why we're able to do much more with so little. Let me just recap the countries that are covered under this project. We have Burkina Faso, Burundi, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Eritrea, the Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Madagascar, Mali, Mozambique, Niger, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Togo, and Zimbabwe. These are the 22 countries, and I believe almost all of the countries are represented in today's program. What are the objectives of this project? The overall goal of this project is to enhance the capacities of transition states to manage their public debts more effectively and transparently for improved macroeconomic stability, which can support economic growth. Specifically, the objectives include to strengthen capacity for prudent, transparent, and sustainable debt management in the transition countries, and to enhance capacity for managing arrears, which is very key, and finally, to enhance the country's ability to raise sustainable debt to finance more productive investments to build back resiliency and stability in their countries. The project has 4 components. The first component is diagnostic assessments. This was undertaken in the first year of the project, and the number of countries were covered at that stage of the project. I will come to that later in the presentation. The second component is technical assistance, which is including training, embedded advisory, and provision of tools. The third component is policy dialogue. The event we are having today till the next 4 days includes the technical assistance training as well as policy dialogue. The first day of this event is policy dialogue. From second day to the final day, we are going to be doing intensive training. Then the last component of the project is project management, which relates to administrative issues, reporting, auditing, and so on and so forth. What is the delivery approach? How is the project being delivered? First, we have targeted country-specific activities. Some countries have requested for us to support them in a specific area or specific areas, and we go into those countries and provide those support. I'll come to that later. We also have regional or group activities where we aggregate a number of countries in a particular region or countries that have similar issues or problems or capacity needs. We aggregate them and have a program for them or an activity for them. Then we also have whole of beneficiaries activities like the one we are doing here, where we have all the whole 22 countries gathered together to benefit in a particular activity. And the mode of delivery include physical, like we are doing, hybrid, this one is also hybrid, or wholly virtual. So these are the ways we deliver the project. What are the expected outputs of this project? One is to have prioritized public debt management capacity needs of the transition states in debt distress, at high risk of debt distress, or moderate risk of debt distress. These were identified at the diagnostic stage of this project. And as we go along implementation, we keep identifying more and more needs and prioritizing and also providing support to our countries. The second one is to have an enhanced knowledge of public debt management and the public finance management officials in transition states. The third one is to have laws, regulations, and resource materials on public debt management which are provided to public debt management agencies in the transition states. Fourth is to have more informed policymakers on public debt management in transition states. And finally, is to have knowledge products on public debt management which are disseminated to transition states. The expected outcomes of this project include to have an enhanced capacity for the design and implementation of institutional frameworks for public debt management, to have enhanced capacity for formulation and effective implementation of debt policy and medium-term debt management strategies, to have enhanced capacity for recording, monitoring, and reporting of debt statistics, to have enhanced capacity for mobilizing innovative debt financing for productivity, and finally, to have an enhanced capacity for greater resilience of the transition states to fiscal risks. I want to quickly take you through what we have done so far on this project since its inception. Like I said earlier, we started off with diagnostic assessments in selected number of countries, including the Gambia, the Comoros, Central African Republic, Djibouti, Togo, and South Sudan. Because we couldn't go to all the 22 countries, we had to identify countries that represent the entire population to be able to have this diagnostic assessment. That enabled us to identify which areas we are going to be providing support to. We have also undertaken country-specific technical assistance on capacity development in debt management and public financial management in a number of countries, including the Gambia, the Comoros, South Sudan, Togo. Togo is going to be done next week. And we have in the pipeline Liberia, Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, and Somalia for this year. I'll be getting in touch with these countries. I've started engagement with some of them already. So I'll be coming back to you for us to finalize on the modalities for the technical assistance. We have also undertaken Macroeconomic Management Academy training on macro modeling in Central African Republic and Zimbabwe. And we had the inaugural PFMA spotlight on public debt management in transition states, which was focused on emerging public debt management capacity challenges in Africa's transition states. This was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, between June 11 and 12, 2024. We are having the second edition today and in the next 4 days. So the second edition of the PFMA Spotlight series on strengthening capacity for loan negotiation and debt restructuring in Africa's transition states is the one we are holding currently. We also had the Africa Debt Managers Initiative Network learning event, which was a knowledge sharing and training focused on developing and deepening of the domestic debt markets in Africa. This was held back-to-back with the PFMA Spotlight event in Addis Ababa in June 2024. The essence was that debt managers from transition countries can also attend that admin program. And that admin is for all the countries in Africa. So it was held back-to-back last year. We also held the Debt Management Forum for Africa, the inaugural policy dialogue on making debt work for Africa, policies, practices, and options. This was held in Abuja, Nigeria, on 16th to 17th of December 2024. The Debt Management Forum for Africa is a platform for ministers of finance and central bank governors to engage at policy level on how to resolve the debt challenge we face in the continent, and as well as the capacity development issues, and also to engage in cross-learning and peer-to-peer exchanges on issues of debt management and public financial management in Africa. And we sponsored transition states to attend that event in Abuja last year. We also sponsored participants from the transition states to attend the African Public Finance Conference 2024, which was based on emerging issues on public financial management and domestic revenue mobilization in Africa, and as well as the PFA flagship training, which was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in November 2024. This program, we jointly implemented this program with the PFA Secretariat and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. It was held in Ethiopia last year. A number of you participated in that event. We also co-organized the high-level regional dialogue on public finance systems in Africa with the United Nations Development Program and the government of Benin Republic. This was held on the 25th and 26th March this year. And the theme of that dialogue event was modernizing accountability and transparency in public finance systems in Africa. A number of our members here also were participants at that event. We jointly, with the African Union, organized the African Union Conference on Debt, which was focused on Africa's public debt management agenda in restoring and safeguarding debt sustainability. This was held in Lomé, Togo, in May 12 to 14, 2025. And a number of you were sponsored to participate in that program. And of course, many of you would have participated in the first cohort or participating in the second cohort of the Public Finance Management Academy's Public Finance Management Executive Training, which we run every 18 months. Like had been said during the opening remarks and welcoming remarks, the first cohort of this training program graduated in December 2023, and we started the second cohort in June 2024, of which we have over 500 participants from 49 countries participating, and I know a number of you are also benefiting from that program. So what are the lessons that we have learned so far in implementing the program? First is that there's a challenge in implementing internally bank implemented projects like our own. The usual way projects are managed is for a firm to be procured to manage the program, and it's easy. But this time around, managing it internally meant that we have to co-fund the project. So we have to use our administrative budget to also complement the project budget to be able to implement it. So it puts pressure also on our administrative budget within the department. But the benefit is huge because it saves a lot of costs, and we're able to do more with less. Another lesson is engaging with some of the countries. Sometimes we have hard times engaging with countries, getting their confirmation to provide support to them, and also getting countries to make nominations on time for programs. Like some of you will know, even this one we are having, some didn't get their nomination until the last minute. And it puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure that everybody's taken care of. Some people's nomination came just less than 1 week before this event. So we had to also work around the clock to make sure that people are accommodated. So we would wish that countries are more proactive and also cooperative when we approach them for activities. Finally, we've observed that there's quite a large room for scaling up capacity development on public finance management and public debt management in transition states. A number of countries are coming forward to us to support them. And from what we have done also, we see a lot of room for improvement. So we are taking note of that and seeking ways to make sure that we scale up what we are doing. Okay, so going forward, we have planned targeted technical assistance support to countries that have demanded support. A number of the countries that I mentioned earlier that we provided technical assistance to, we are on demand. So if you need support, please come forward and let us know officially so that we can take it into consideration in our planning. Also, we want to take forward the outcomes of this dialogue and learning event, including identifying new requests that may come out of this. By the time we finish this event, there may be follow-up activities that we might have to undertake to further the capacity development in this particular area. Also, we are looking at group training activities for countries in debt distress, at high risk of debt distress, and moderate risk of debt distress. You know, putting these countries together and having an event for them, targeted event for this group of countries. We have done one before, the PFA conference that we did last year. We selected countries that were at high risk of debt distress and that were at debt distress for that conference because they were more in need. We're also looking at collaboration with other bank departments and international development partners and multilateral development banks for joint activities and shared resources for our transition states. Already that's happening, and we want to intensify that. Indeed, the work we do in the African Development Institute and Public Finance Management Academy is based on partnerships. We have over 20 institutions, both regional institutions and international institutions that we collaborate with. LSF is here partnering with us on this one, which is their core area of competence. Thank you, Olivier. And we are planning massive open online courses on public finance management and macroeconomic policy management from next year. The TSF staff and officials can take advantage of this self-paced learning. We are rolling out MOOCs because we know that we can't reach everybody at the same time. Some people don't have time to attend events, so they will rather learn at their own pace. So the MOOCs will help people wherever they are. They can learn at their own paces. If they complete the programs, they get certified like any other person who has attended the structured training. In summary, despite the limited budget for the project, we are ensuring that we provide impactful and catalytic interventions to improve debt management in the beneficiary countries. I have to say that I'm quite proud of what we have done so far in this project. In spite of a very small budget, some of you have projects that are over 5 million, 10 million, 20 million or so for one country. But we are using just 2 million UA to do a lot for almost 22 countries. So I'm quite proud of that. And I want to thank my colleagues who are supporting on this project. Also, the management and staff of the bank are committed to the improvement of governance, public finance, and debt management capacity in transition state. This goes without saying. That's what we are here for. and that is what we are committed to be doing. So countries with specific capacity development needs are welcome to make their requests, and we will do our best to support them as far as our resources can allow. And also, like I said earlier, we have huge untapped potentials that lie within the transition states, and together we can harness these potentials for Africa's development and greatness. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a successful learning event. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibe. Very excellent summary and rundown of what has been achieved through this project over time. Like you rightly mentioned, there are lots of potentials we want to focus on. So we urge countries